Hello, it's Jack Tutor here of Attention Magazine. Welcome to Crucial Listening, the podcast where I speak with musicians and sound artists about 3 albums that are important to them. My guest this time is Rachel Lynn, a multidisciplinary artist based in Berlin. Rachel's new album, Stories Came to Us, is out now on her My Own Imaginary World imprint, which also hosted her last album, Old Daydream, also fabulous. I've been having a lot of fun with this new record. It's quite a short record, and that's very much to its strength. You've got modular synthesizer, various loops, zither, field recordings, and voice, which is expressing these small clusters of words that, when everything comes together, it has this sense of cryptic communication to it, or partial communication, almost like something uttered on the brink of sleep talk that your conscious mind is left scrabbling to decode afterwards. I think that's why I keep coming back to this record and playing it again and again. There's this hazy sense of something trying to emanate through a really fuzzy membrane. Love it. I'll include links in the show notes so you can check it out too. Rachel picked 3 very interesting records to talk about. I'd not really spent any time with any of them before, and I'd love to hear what Rachel said about them too, so this was a good one. If you're enjoying Crucial Listening, you can support financially over at ko-fi.com/crucial listening. One-off or monthly, any amount you please, just to help keep the show ticking. But thank you for listening, as always. I love to hear from you. Hope you enjoy this one. This is Rachel Lynn on Crucial Listening. Hello, Rachel. Welcome to Crucial Listening.
Hello. How are you doing? Thanks for having me.
Really good. How are you?
I'm very good. I am sitting in my studio at the moment, and happy to talk today about albums that have influenced my life and sound or vision of sound. So
wicked. Okay, that's awesome. Yeah. So before we get stuck into those, I want to talk about your new record called Stories Came to Us, which is coming out on your My Own Imaginary World imprint. I mean, as we're recording this, it's coming out tomorrow. It will be out in the world when this is released. So first thing I want to talk about is so you premiered the album at Tate Modern in London recently, right? And I've seen some incredible footage of people throwing shapes to... Specifically, Therefore the Time Stops. Like, it's
that's right. That's
really
right.
fabulous. So tell me about how the Tate was.
The Tate was a big surprise for me. It's crazy because I visit the Tate kind of every time I go to London. So the opportunity to premiere the album there, I was just like, is this really happening? Oh my God. It was almost like I manifested it to happen, because the last time I was there, I was like, wow, this place could do with some sounds, or I could do sound. I think I put it out there in the universe, and it matched me up. I mean, if you believe in that stuff. But that happened, and I kind of did like my albums, when I'm performing it live, it's never, press play on the computer and I'm playing my tracks. It's really like an improvised version. So I'm really playing with the crowd and seeing what they need in that time. And I think the video you're referring to, there's like a group of people just kind of really letting loose, and it almost surprised me as well. I was just like looking at them, and they really wanted things to be fast, not fast in terms of sound, but they were doing very experimental dancing. So I just kind of played on that, and yeah, it was a beautiful moment, a beautiful evening. So something, yeah, I won't forget that moment. So
when something like that happens, do you, as you say, there's like an elasticity to your music when you're performing it live. So how long did you leave that one going before you're like, right, I'm going to round this off now?
Well, I kind of had, there's there, as I was saying, it is improvised, but there also is structure to my work. So I knew the tracks I wanted to play from my album, and I kind of just worked through those. So yeah, one moment's happening, and then you have to kind of go, okay, now this is over, I'm going to move on to the next thing. But it's just continuous sound. So it's always growing, evolving, changing. And it's one thing onto the next thing. Yeah, it's very special to be in within like an instrument. Like I play with the modular, and it's like, yeah, I would say it's kind of changed my life, this instrument in general. Like,
wow,
given me so much. Yeah.
I want to ask you about the record. I've had it, I can't remember when the promo came through, but been listening to it a lot since it initially came through.
Really?
And yeah, I think it's wonderful. So I was intrigued to see you actually post about the fact that writing and working on this record took you into quite a deep space. I'm curious how that first started out. I mean, what were the first elements of the record that kind of came together for you?
I mean, now that it's done, and I've kind of, now I'm up to the point where it's being shared, and I'm kind of expressed and released parts of myself. I've been trying to think back, kind of where did this kind of start molding? And I would just have to say it just started with pen and paper. And it wasn't initially to start writing a record. I was kind of in a phase of just expressing myself through words. I was writing kind of like journaling. It was mixed journaling, writing poetry, just obsessed with words, surfing words, reading old literature. Yeah, just like obsessed with words. And I have a notebook, and I still have it, and it's just like a mumble jumble of words. And I kind of like, at that point I was like, right, I just kind of want to go, like, leave Berlin and go and write somewhere. Like, I've never gone to write, but I was like, right, I'm going to Italy. I just got on a plane and just went to the Amalfi Coast in Italy. I was like, I just want to sit at a coffee shop or sit on the beach, and I just want to write. Like, I'm talking about words, not about the music yet. I just need to express myself like this. And I was writing about the sea and like visions and just things that I could see, like, I'm looking at the ocean. So I'm writing like, blue ocean, swimming, sparkling water, whatever. I was just writing all those things down to the point where I was like, I'm going to like assemble this into like rhymes and songs. And that's kind of how it started. And then the later thing was like recording those ideas onto a recorder, like using my voice. Then it was like building the sound world around those stories. So that's how the album was made.
It's very interesting you talk about writing about the locations that you're in, because one thing I made note of is the prominence of trees for me as a listening experience, like trees and bird song and maybe rustling leaves, or at least sounds that feel akin. Definitely. So were you in those kind of environments, or were your thoughts just going there for some reason?
I mean, I must have been, but I guess when I was recording some of the when you're hearing birds, I actually haven't added like, oh, I'm going to make a recording of a bird. I was literally making a recording on my phone.
Oh, right.
And then the birds are chirping outside. So I've just captured that. It's almost like a sound visual film. So it's just whatever it's picked up is in there. And then also with the sound design, my level of sound design is they're actually not really trees rustling. I'm able to kind of form like a foley. So it's like, I wouldn't say it's real trees, but a foley of the sensation and feeling of this trees like wrapping around you. So this is the pure sound design. But yeah, sure, there's like everything in there. I have to see all the sounds in there. I made all of those sounds. Everything's very hand designed, handmade, or just come from my body, like vocals. And yeah, it was a bodily experience, bodily mental experience. I'm really glad I documented it all and kind of like now like put it out, because at some point I was doubting it. I was like, I'm not sure if this is not because I wasn't making it for anybody else. I've always made it for myself. It's just like it's almost like a diary or something like that. So I wasn't sure how it was going to perceive, but there was something inside me going, no, actually, this is unique. I mean, unique to me. And if I feel that way, with my tastes, with sound and everything, I think whoever's going to like it, if I think it's unique, then maybe it is. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to ask about as well is about fidelity and proximity. I've written here, there's something that I've picked up on this record, particularly over headphones, and it's kind of as well made me think of your previous album, Daydream as well.
Mm-hmm.
Where you have this loop on the second track of the new record that when you get to the third track appears and seems to be dropped back a level. There's this like real sense of layers and, like I say, proximity and almost documentation going on. I wondered if that was like a theme that was that you're consciously toying with. Yeah, tell me about your connection with that.
Yeah, I see. I mean, I think you're referring to like on the Oh Daydream, my first album. I'm doing like it's the real a cappella of Make Me Feel Inside La La. Second track, it goes into a more produced version of that.
Yeah.
And with Stories Came to Us, there's Desire, and then I've kind of looped a part of Desire. I think, like I love working within albums. I think like I really only want to produce albums because for me, like an album is like it's so visual. Like it really needs an intro, an opening, like a teasing, and then you go into the record. So I think my stuff, so far with two albums in the last few years, I've used a part, not purposely, not like, I need to. It's all done very organically, but that's what's cool about my music. It can be looped. Like you can find two words and just loop it. So it's like very creative for DJs, or it's like interesting for listeners. And I think in future as well, like I'll always take out parts of tracks and make like a looped version or some other version. But I actually discovered this is Desire, actually playing it live. So it suddenly was looping. Is this Desire looping, and then back again? I thought, okay, that actually sounds really live.
Wow.
So I was like, right, I was just going to make that into a track because it was something different to the actual full track. It was like almost like a breath work, like intro to Desire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'd say like Desire on the record is my main like singing track, if you will. Like I was singing about desire, and that's where you hear the birds chirping. It was like actual birds chirping while I was in the bathroom with my Zitar recording it live. And it's just like one take, that song. Yeah, I made a few versions of it, but this version I like the most.
That's great. I love the record. I could definitely spend the rest of the time asking questions about this one because, like I say, spent a lot of time with it. My brain keeps popping
honestly
up stuff.
So nice to hear because it means a lot to like somebody listening it and enjoying it and wondering what it is inside and maybe what the meanings are. And yeah, thank you.
For sure. Right, well, I'll put links so that people as well can dive into it too, and they totally should. Rachel, let's talk about your important albums. So I think right at the top of the show you kind of indicate your answer to this question, but I like to ask about how people think about the word important when picking their list of records. So yeah, how did you interpret important in order to come up with the 3 records that you did?
I took this task very seriously because I was like, I mean, I've listened to a lot of music. I've been listening to music since I was a child, watching watching film clips on the TV. I used to wake up 6 a.m. and watch from the pop chart 100 to 1, and that was like my thing to do
Wow.
as a small child. That's my background in music. Like I just love, I mean, just pop music, all music. I mean, 80s, 90s music. It was the best time for videos and music. And then later I was, recording. I would make mixtapes and record the radio and make cassettes. I mean, that's how we used to do it back in the day. So it was kind of, I mean, getting to the albums, there's a lot of music I enjoy for dancing or for moments or, hearing on the radio and so on. But it was like, for me, these choices were what has really influenced me as an artist to what have I gone in and kind of studied a little bit, or what has fascinated me about an artist and what they're doing to dive in and kind of like, what are they using? Like, how is that made? So I would say the 3 albums I have kind of been like intrigued in that way. So they would be some of the most influential albums to my music making. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Wicked. Cool. So whichever one you want to go with first, Rachel, which one makes the most sense to you?
We could start with The Art of Noise, in Invisible Silence, sorry.
Invisible Silence? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Cool. Great. So, yeah, give me a little introduction as to why this one's important to you.
I would have to say, if off the top of my head, this was the number one thing that popped out. Why is this album cool? It's kind of like, it's like a sound extravaganza. Like I just really listened to the album like before our chat, just to kind of rehear some parts that really that I remember really drew me in. But I think the main thing was when I first heard it, I was like, wow, the sampling, the vocals, the voices, like how are they making this? Like where are the voices coming from? I think it was like all about the sampling. All the voices are layering, like it's trippy, but it's very experimental, but it's super groovy. It's new beat, it's pop, it's drum kit stuff, it's club. It's like an album with everything. You have almost ambient spoken word, but in a more, not in a dark way, in more of like a pop way.
Yeah.
It's just like a super interesting record to kind of listen to. It's not like, I mean, I think it's commercial, but not really. And yeah, I think I was just mainly kind of obsessed with how are they sampling all these voices, because it's kind of very irregular. Like it's like it's like how are they doing this stuff? Like how is that made? Now I would understand a little bit more, and I would say because I really love sampling as well. But yeah, this album it's definitely like the groovier pick of the albums that I'm going to talk about. I just think it influenced me, and just especially the sampling. That's what I could say about it, actually.
So that was the bit when you talk about these albums being influential on your practice, their use of sampling. That was the thing that led into your work, right?
Yeah, and it's also like their use of, it's like all the sounds. I mean, even as an album, it kind of has everything, but mainly the sampling, the voices or changing tones. You have really deep stuff, and then it goes high and then low again, but all together. And it's like, it's something made in the 80s. I think I discovered it in maybe 15 years ago or something like that. I mean, I wasn't making music then, and I was just like, wow, that's cool. It was just like, that's a cool album. And I've played like some of the music on, mixes over the years and stuff like that. So I think it's like it's just like a staple album that everyone should hear.
Yeah. The voice sampling is really interesting. I think that really stuck out to me, because I think some of the voices that are sampled, are very different to say. It makes you realize why choral pads are what they are, right? Because you've got some voices, as you say, they're really deep and have like a heavy effective vibrato on them, and you're like, it takes a specific kind of ear to hear that and go, someone's going to want to hear that again, modulated and treated and turned into a melody all of itself, because it doesn't sound like that.
The voices become the way they're processing voices is super interesting. And even now when I was listening, I'm still like, what are they doing? Like, it's kind of, it's a little bit of a, it makes me want to go back and listen to it all again. It honestly, it was mainly the vocals, and just like how you can create an album with like everything on it. It has, it's experimental, but you also have like the new big hit, which you could play in a club. You have like an ambient track. I think it's called like Camilla, which is like I think it's Camilla, which is kind of like chill out. It just has like music for every moment, but it's just like super funky. And I think it's also classic. Like for me, that won't age. In 20 years, that's still going to be amazing.
Right.
It's aged very well. And for something experimental, I really like it a lot.
So you said you discovered it about 15 years ago. Do you remember how it came into your life?
I think honestly, I think I was at like, this is how I remember. I was at Oxfam, this kind of secondhand store. Like, this is kind of where I used to dig for records here, because they would have like, maybe I'm thinking of another album. Anyway, I was searching for records in Oxfam, you could find stuff for 50 cents or $1 or however much, but very cheap. And it was just like something I had picked up, and I didn't even know what it was at that point. It just had a cool cover. So I used to like buy things with a cool cover. I thought, okay, if that cover's like this, maybe it's cool. Cheap. Try it. Let's try it. You never know. And it was like, when I played it, I was like, whoa, this is have you heard this album? Like, this is cool, this is mine. Like, I discovered this. That's how it felt. That's how I remember it. But it could have been another album like this, I'm not sure.
It's great though, because that's a very typical, at Oxfam especially, over here, Oxfam record stores, we got a few near me as well,
right?
And if they're close enough, you kind of get to know what they've got, and then to leave it a bit and go back. But I guess the nice thing is that you don't have that sunk cost with the secondhand record store. You're like, it's 50p. If this ain't good, it doesn't matter. That's very liberating. You don't have that financial impediment to just going out and picking something up, which is nice.
I mean, my whole record collection, I mean, sure, I have a lot of stuff I bought from record stores and so on, but my classical collection, ambient experimental collection, is all from places like Oxfam. Like, I'm someone you'll see on like a market floor, like rummaging inside boxes. I love a bargain when it comes to this stuff, because sometimes you pick something up, you're like, wow, I paid 50 cents for this, and this is amazing. Like, I have a ballet collection of records. I mean, I don't know many. I probably have Swan Lake like 10 times over, but just picking up like cheap records, but amazing classical records. I have a really like wonderful collection of interesting stuff. And and you think like, wow, someone's kind of given this away, or they've kind of given it away, and I mean, it's got into the right hands, I would say. So, I think like if you're out there, it's not just, I mean, record stores are cool and everything, but you can really find amazing records at markets, secondhand stores, things like that. And it's also like a very miscellaneous box. Like, you never know what you're going to get. Like, one week you could look and it's like whatever, the next week, wow, they have this now. So I always I still look in these places. I love vintage stores.
I feel like actually since obviously the mass migration to digital formats, that's been a real boon for those kind of stores, because I think before that there used to be particular records that would come up all the time. You could get as many copies of like a Liberty X album as you wanted, but then other records were keepers, right? Or like culturally seen that way. But now people are getting rid of them because of the format, not because of, listening
exactly.
longevity. So that's positive if you're going rummaging, right?
It's like all the, streaming TV now, like no one wants the DVDs, but
yeah.
You can really pick up some amazing stuff. And also I found like my thing of like looking at, I mean, you shouldn't judge a book by a cover, they say, but sometimes with records you can see, it's impossible to know every single, song and album and artist out there. So sometimes looking at a cool cover, it is a hit and miss, but a lot of the times I'm right with the covers. Like if it's something something cool and it draws you in, just buy it. If it's, you can always give it away or take it back to Oxfam.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's funny with this one actually that you picked out the cover, because it sounds like a band that was very mindful of their appearance and art direction. Like, Paul Morley, the journalist, was in there for a certain point. I think he'd left by the time this record came out. But how much have you dug into the history of Art of Noise? Is that an aspect of music listening that appeals to you, digging into like a band's history, the context, or do you kind of hold tight to the listening and that's
I would say this one is, honestly, I'm a pure listener. I haven't dived recently into, I know I did at some point, but I do need to refresh about the background, and I probably should, because as I was saying, it's a super interesting record, but just from a listener's point of view, I was just like, wow, this is how are they doing this? That was the next record I'll talk about is the one I really went down a rabbit hole with, and
okay, cool. The final question then on this Art of Noise record then is, do you have a favorite track, and if not, one that just sticks out in your head now while we're talking?
The Camilla track, Legs. I should have it up here, the track list, shouldn't I? The Art of Noise.
While you're doing that, the one that really got me, because it sounded very weirdly modern, was there's a track called Backbeat, where the drums are like half time compared to the rest of the record, but it sounds like a really groovy, like you can imagine like a really dirty hip hop thing happening over that one.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I feel like it can kind of this album they could redo and interpret it completely, for the 2023. Not that it needs to be, but it's aged so well that it almost does sound modern, right? The tracks for me, Legs, the Camilla track, and Paranomia, how they sing it, which I like a lot. And it's all good. There's also a deluxe version that has many more tracks, but it's actually quite a large track list. So anyone listening to this, just go and listen to this Invisible Silence by Art of Noise.
Paranoid.
So Rachel, your second important album, which one do you want to go for?
Yes, so it is the Delia, Derbyshire, and Barry Bermange.
Bermange, yeah.
Invention for Radio Number 1 with Her Dreams.
Yeah, so give me a little introduction as to why this one's important to you.
Well, honestly, it was kind of hard to pick a specific project of Delia, Derbyshire, because not only is she influential to me, the whole BBC Radiophonic Workshop was a huge rabbit hole that I dived into and was obsessed for a long period of time, where I listened to everything, watched all the documentaries. There's some amazing documentaries on YouTube if you just type in radiophonic workshop, and all their artists, and Daphne Oram. I mean, it's honestly all of it. So it was kind of hard to pick a project because I also love Daphne Oram as well. But it's just fascinating, right? Because it was absolutely a pioneering moment for this collective, and they were inventing on the spot. And at first I, heard a track, and I was like, wow, what is that? Like, how is that made? This is before I had equipment. A modular. I was kind of like, very much into electronic music, and I really wanted to make sound. And I was learning how to make sound. So I was, I was doing my music theory for myself, trying to discover what they were using and how they were making things. So I guess what drew me in was just like the absolute rawness of the sounds, and also thinking, wow, these people don't even have computers. I've got a computer here and I can't make music, but like, how did they do it without computers? Like, how was this made? Like, that was so fascinating to me at that point. So I dived in and discovered a world of, well, I'm trying to find the word for it, but it was kind of spectacular, what they were doing. And even, they were using test equipment, electronic test equipment, and kind of using recording onto tape and looping the tape, and even running tape up and down hallways and making huge tank reverbs the size of a room. Just like crazy, like mad science stuff. And I just was like, wow, I'm very much obsessed with spring reverb. Like, I love that sound. So for me, even my first record was made, like the processing of that was a spring reverb. And I think I would have to say that was influenced by obviously my love of the spring reverb, but also what the Radiophonic Workshop were doing.
Wow.
It was my first, the spring reverb was the first effect that I ever bought. Like, I have a tank here at my studio. A very small tank, and I don't have a tank the size of a room. That's what they were making there to experiment with, and literally running like tape loops, like, up and down hallways. So it was like super long loops, and cutting them and putting the pieces back together. It's just fascinating. So yeah, it was a nice time to discover all this stuff. And I picked this album specifically now because I love how it's formatted. The album, if you look at the track list, it's called Running. So the first track is Running, next track Falling, next track Land, next track Sea, next track Color. And even like a concept like this for the 60s is very interesting.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I don't know, this sort of thing gives me confidence to be experimental and outspoken with my expression and stuff like that, because it's a concept, right? It's running, falling, land, sea, and color. It's interesting. It's like a vision. And then for this album, I'm particularly in love with the track called Falling, that I actually made a cover of this piece, which I've actually performed live a few times. I haven't released it, but I re-recorded Delia Derbyshire's vocals, and so I've recorded all the vocals, and I made my own sound on top, and I performed that live. And it's it's very different to her piece. My piece has bees inside, and it's different. But I just found it so inspiring to like create a cover. As soon as I heard it, I was like, I need to create this. It's like something I wish that I made myself. So I performed this twice. I performed this actually last year in Berlin as a part of my show. So yeah, it's something I would like to release at some point. I need to see if I can actually do that.
Right.
It's not my work. It's not my work. It is my work, but I'm not sure of the thing with covers, right? You kind of on the BBC and so on.
Grey area. Yeah.
Yeah, I need to, but it would be wonderful to release because it's really a really nice piece. So yeah, so it's been influential like that. I've made covers of it. But this piece, yeah, Falling for the Dreams, I mean, if you hear it, it's so like the spoken words. I mean, even my new album is a lot of spoken word stuff. I'm not saying it's because of this album that I'm talking about, but I mean, there has to be some influence in there.
Oh gosh. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously I am listening for potential points of connection because I'm often in the build up to this playing your record and these important albums back to back. But what I found really interesting is, so you've got, and hopefully there's a single version that we're both talking about, and it's the one that I listened to. But what I understand is Bermange's role was to basically construct these. It's like a poetic drama, right? Isn't it? So it's people talking about and recounting their dreams that they've had, and as you say, you've got this track list that collates these statements from the dreams into different categories: falling, color, as you say, running, and then
Like scenes.
yes, exactly, that's it. And you get all these different perspectives and words or phrases like repeated but also very spaced out, and Delia's like work slinking through the whole thing and giving it this really weird perception. So with all that in mind, I nearly forgot my train of thought, but yes, hearing Dimension after hearing this record where you're recounting a dream and falling, I'm guessing that was subconscious, but it was really lovely to hear. Yeah,
it actually was very subconscious. It's not, when I wrote Dimension, it's just Dimension is written about, I was laying on my partner's chest, like literally, and just actually wondering what it would be like to fall into him.
wow.
And that's where the song came from. So, but I can understand how the connection between my track and the falling. Absolutely, it's just sound realm. This kind of space. And like when you listen to the falling, what I also really love about this, it was probably, it would have been, they had no computers back then. It would have been one take, one recording, and maybe one oscillator. Because it's basically spoken word, and then there's noise, like a lot of noise and a drone running below it. But it's really imperfect. Like there's actually a noise running through it. I would say today you wouldn't have that noise there. It's like electrical noise that shouldn't be there. So that's what's so beautiful about it, because it was like, wow, this was made in the 60s. Without a computer, of course it's going to be imperfect. And it's also, I like hearing that stuff now, because it's like my music can be, it's not about having the perfect recording. It is really about capturing something that's special and unique. It's not about perfection. And I think, I let that whole perfection thing go a while ago. And that's like led me to release 2 albums just like on my own terms. But it really, the recordings, the album of this is Delia's, the Dreams album is imperfect. It's very strange. It's very eerie. It's very spooky. The description I get of my music, I'm kind of like, a lot of people say, "Oh, your music's kind of really spooky," but not intentionally. It just gets really intimate sometimes and kind of like really in your ear. And it can be. It's like a thriller. It's moody. It's eerie. There's like a lot of like, I can see myself in the Dreams album that I'm talking about. It's mysterious. What possessed the pioneers to express themselves in this way? Like, why were they expressing themselves in this way in the 60s? It's really
right.
It's kind of, it is dark. It's really theatrical. It's really weird stuff, and that's what's so intriguing about it. Like what was making them possessing them to make such things? Was it that the sounds. I mean, spring reverb is kind of a moody, mysterious, eerie sound. So was it these processors and tapes and drones that they were using? Because they're pretty dark sounds. Was this influencing was this kind of creating like a sound bed for them to be weirder? Maybe if they wouldn't say happier instruments, but maybe, I don't know, like synths or something like that, they would have made different music. I'm not sure.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what they had at that time. So I think that did influence them, because it was really, I mean, just take away their vocals, like they're working with some pretty dark sounding sounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I landed with it, where I was like, because it just takes, as you've explained, so much time to set up these things. Once you've got something which has a lot of allure, even if it's kind of chilling you to the bone as well, it's like, well,
just have to go with it.
Let's run with this, exactly. And now let's do a really ghoulish piece.
Let's commit to this like eeriness and just get weird. It was almost like, I can, now that I think about it, that's what was calling in their space. I mean, we'll never know, but that's what's so mysterious about it.
I mean, some of the text is terrifying.
The spoken word.
Yeah, I mean, there's some moments which are very reminiscent of scenes in horror films where someone is gradually feeling the different parts of a body, and you get the impression they're checking whether they're still alive. There's this real juxtaposition between two dreams that I made note of, like one voice saying, when they're going through this process of checking whether his body's alive, they say he's alive, and then the next one says he's dead, but like a different voice. But it's the about turn is so that one got me. It's chilling.
It is chilling, all of it, but chilling in an mysterious, intriguing way.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember one of the lines from The Falling, but it's coming in and out, and I'm losing it. Yeah, it's in space, a complete feeling of space and nothingness. I find sometimes I should think I should be enjoying this, but I'm so panic-stricken. Like I know all of the words, I just can't recite it right now. But I mean, because I have recorded it and performed it, and I've got too many other thoughts in my head. But it's so, I just love it so much. Yeah, I would actually really like to show you the cover that I made. I think you'd really like it.
Oh my goodness, I'm so fascinated, because also as well, it's not typical. It's not sung, right? So the fact that you've done like a deliberate vocal take over the top of these words is really, I'd love to hear it. Yeah.
I mean, it's got nothing of their song inside. It's just, so I did word for word, and then I created the sound world around it. But my sound world is different. It's really like, first you're with bees, like flying around, and then it goes to, they start talking about falling into a big black hole, and there's chairs and tables around and people with their arms outstretched, and it's like, and so you're kind of falling, and there's all these chairs breaking, and like you really feel like, and it's dripping, and it's kind of like, it's almost like a cave, and then you end up into like a snow blizzard. So I feel like I have to kind of find a way to put this work out there.
I felt as if I was falling forever.
Not quickly, but I am definitely going down, 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 and I know that nothing can stop me. I try sometimes to think in myself, oh, this is lovely, you should be enjoying this, but I'm so panic-stricken.
Okay, Rachel, we got one more important record. So if you could give me the name of it, and then also a little bit about why this one's important to you too.
So the Jean-Michel Jarre Equinoxe album. So this album, for the third album, I was like, absolutely. would have to put this in the top 3 picks. I mean, just starting with the cover artwork, it's also one of the records, or Jean-Michel Jarre's records in general, I always find at secondhand stores and market boxes and things like that. So I actually, every time I see them, I have not all of his collection, but a lot, like pretty much all of them, and even doubles of some. So I really like all of his records. And I think Equinoxe is the first one that I discovered. And I mean, when you look at the cover, you're looking at all of these kind of like sitting or like looking at you, and you're just like, it's almost like a projection of like what's to come. Like it's so intriguing. Like, wow, okay, this looks trippy, and it absolutely is trippy. For me, what is so interesting about this record is, so yeah, it's honestly the trippiness. Like the first album was sample. The second album we discussed with Delia is the spoken words and the eeriness and the sound design. And then Jean-Michel Jarre is the trippy. And also what I love about it, it's just a continuous journey. It's almost like it's like a movie with different scenes. So you're listening and it doesn't end. It just kind of sways into the next thing, but it's a different scene, and it's almost like a soundtrack for a film. Perhaps it was. I haven't looked into it, but I don't think so. But it should have been. It could have been.
Yeah.
But it's such a fantastic piece of music. Like the whole run through. I typically like the start of the record more. I mean, I like all of it, but I think out of everything that we've discussed today, it's the most ethereal pick. It was something that, like, I was like, wow, how can something be trippy, ethereal, moody, mystical, dreamy? It's the dreamiest record that we've spoken about today. And that's influenced my music. My own music has elements of, being super trippy and dreamy and ethereal and dark, like the other records. And this Equinoxe brings up, when I was listening to it again today, because of all these scenes, the emotions keep changing. So you go from really really trippy to then mystical, and then you're swayed into something really joyful. So, and then playful, and then back to something trippy and dark again. And it's a story without vocals. And I think that's hard to do, because in my album, I've told a story with vocals. I mean, perhaps one day I'll make a album without the vocals and tell the story through the sound design. But Equinoxe is a beautiful album of story without vocals telling you what to feel or where you are. It's an amazing experience. It's an album that everybody should hear. And when I was listening to it on YouTube today to have a quick listen through, I got stuck in the comments, and so many people are like, wow, best album ever produced.
Wow.
Like, I think if you know this album, I'm not even sure if it's a Headsy album. I think a lot of people know this album. It's just like a classic. It's something that will influence and be mystical for the end of its time. It's a beautiful, beautiful record. So it's definitely the trippy one.
Yeah. What is it? This may not be easy to pinpoint. What is it about this record that brings that trippiness for you?
What is it about the record that brings the trippiness? It's almost like a language inside. It's always as something is talking to you, but there's no vocals there. It's like these synths like reaching out and playing with you, and there's these LFO, everything's like moving around, and it's like really not bubbly, but it's very psychedelic. And it's kind of hard to pinpoint, because it's almost like it's not from perhaps it's not from this life. It's like something it's like something in the it's very psychedelic. I wonder how he was in a mindset when this came, like when he produced this, the mindset of this.
Mm-hmm.
I would ask him this question.
Yeah.
Like, how did you, what was your mindset there? Yeah, it's talking to me, but without the vocals. And I find that inspiring because, I think I can make music without telling the story, of course, but it's just an interesting way.
It's like the bit right at the end, I think, has that sense of communication to it, where it's like the final piece, so the 8th one, starts with this almost, as I'm recalling it now, almost fun fairy, very intentionally jovial and kind of tacky in a way sound that then gives way to like a reprise of the 5th piece, but this slowed down, very moody iteration of what was probably the most joyful and upbeat track on the album. And whatever is emanating from that statement feels really because it wraps up quite soon after that point, and it feels very stirring to have that little moment of reprise and then that ebbing out. It's so, it's very affecting, that ending of the record.
Very well constructed, and that may have happened organically, because honestly, when you do make music, you can't plan everything. Sometimes you're just recording and things are happening, and you've finished and you're like, wow, what just, like, you kind of look back, you're like, how did that happen? Like, it probably wasn't deliberate. He just ended in a that's why it's a fantastic piece, because we'll also never know. So Equinoxe is definitely one of my favorite albums. And also, I would say when I first heard the album, I didn't understand how things were being made, but now that I work with gear and I'm producing music, when I hear things, I can say, okay, that's, synth, or that's maybe done like this. I understand all of these records a lot more now, because I'm able to dissect sounds and see how things are happening. I'm less of a listener, but still, as a listener, these albums are just like, wow, that's cool.
Well, I was going to ask about that because Jean-Michel Jarre was really into synthesizers, like most obvious statement, but I think used about 13 different synths, more than 13 on this record alone, which I think for when this came out in 78, I think was quite a big deal. That was quite a decadent thing to be doing. I'm wondering what your relationship is like with synth gear, and do you use your modular system? Are you expanding that a lot? Do you prefer to drill into what you have? Like, how often, how regularly do you take in new bits of equipment into your setup?
I take in, so the 2 albums, I take in one or two pieces of equipment per concept. So I don't grow my studio too fast, because it's really like it's endless. Like, the modular's just going to keep on giving, especially when you're recording your own vocals and putting them in a sampler and then processing those sounds. Everything you decide is going to be different from the next. So it's just this endless thing that just keeps on giving. That's what's so wonderful about it. So before Stories came to us, I used, I have a Zitar here, an antique Zitar, which I used in Desire. I used for the track called Zitar Drama. And then I've sampled it, but ways in which you may not be able to recognize it in other tracks slightly. And that kind of gave the album some momentum, because there's this instrument that keeps propping up. And there's a guitar that I have here is really broken. Like, I found it. There's a site in Germany called eBay Kleinanzeigen, where you can find anything. You just type in what you want, from, I don't know, a hairdryer to a toaster to music equipment. And one guy was just selling it there. He actually brought it to me and was like, "Oh yeah, it was in our attic for like a long time." And I was like, "Wow, it's really in the great hands right now." And I love it because it has like a painted rose on it, but it's really broken, and it's not rusted, but it's like, that's what I'm saying about the imperfection. Like, I kind of like broken things because if it's broken, like, it's not tuned, and like it has, some wire coming off it. All of these things I can play with, and it kind of creates this really unique, like, I find my thing inside, rather than it saying, if it's fully tuned, it's going to just give me what it's giving everybody else. So if it's broken, I can use that brokenness in a way in which I find nice. And it really did that. So I was just like singing with it in my bathroom, or talking with it in my bathroom. That's where I do my recordings.
That's so nice.
In proper way. So for the next record, I would like to, I'm looking for my next, I already know where I'm producing it. I'm going somewhere to produce my next record. And I'm looking for what my next instrument will be. But I'm someone who experiments and just tries things out. I'm not like a classically trained musician. I just really like spend a lot of time exploring, trying things, expressing myself, and just like, trying to do my own thing rather than looking what other artists are doing, like really kind of just doing it my own way. And whoever is listening in the end is like a real, like, a bonus for me. Like, really good, because I'm really just like enjoying to make music so much, and like make these stories, and because it's my healthy outlet to express myself, making music. And I'll be doing it forever, I would say.
Amazing.
I'm happy to, because like I can get really stuck in, I can live inside a concept. And this record kept me busy for like little bit less than 2 years, but it kept me busy doing things, thinking, creating. And even the next record now is already got me thinking, and this is like colors and patterns and places and pictures. I've already started collecting like an archive of pictures of what the moods are, and so on. So there's like a whole like concept behind everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you think you'll go away to write again, like you did on this one?
Yeah, definitely. I'm planning to go away in June for a while, where I will produce something in the next few months. I'm already halfway through the concept. I just need to go there and produce it. I already know not what it will sound like, but I know what I would like to, not what I would like to do, but kind of, I know where I would like to make music and be in the energy of, and so on. But I don't want to talk too much about that. But I guess you will see it when it comes, and you'll be happy.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you. That feels like a really nice place to wrap up. But Rachel, thank you so much. These 3 records have been a lot of fun and really affecting over the past, week or so. I'll say it again, your record as well, and the one prior. I've had loads of fun diving into your music.
Thank you
and we'll
very
continue
much.
to do so. So thank you once again for your time.
Thank you.
And to everyone listening, see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.